Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb. Tonight we ask the questions, we tackle the issues, we clarify matters, and we get on point. Hopes rise for an anti-political dynasty law after President Bongbong Marcos directed Congress to prioritize the measure. But one House lawmaker is urging caution. He says the proposed legislation in its current form cannot be legally enforced without charter change. Let's get on point with the Vice Chair of the House Committee on Constitutional Amendments, Bicol Party List Representative Alfredo Garbin. Congressman, good to see you again. Welcome to the show and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Pinky. 10 days before Christmas and it's good to be here.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. I'm going to start with first, what is your take on the 14 or so anti-dynasty bills filed before the House of Representatives?
Well, I fully support the anti-political dynasty bill because that is a sound and constitutionally inspired where its goal is to prevent the concentration of powers sa nagkakailan lamang na pamilya and of course to broaden the political participation. But my position is if we want to cover and make effective this anti-political proposition, then we need to go into the Constitution by amending Article 6 and Article 7 of the 1987 Constitution. I'm referring to the national elective position from President, Vice President, the Senate, and members of the House of Representatives. Kasi yung kanilang qualification na Pinky ay fixed, categorical, and exclusive under this said article, Article 6 and Article 7.
Tell me exactly why this Article 6 and 7, why do we need to go there to be able to pass an anti-dynasty law?
Well, because there's a minimum qualification. If you add additional qualifications or disqualification for that matter, then you're gonna disturb the constitutionally prescribed qualifications. And in numerous cases decided by the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court said that if Congress cannot do it directly, then they cannot do it indirectly. What I'm saying is, a statutory disqualification cannot amend an existing constitutional...
How is it going to become a disqualification? Because after 3 terms, you are not going to be allowed to run again?
No, I'm referring to the proposed anti-political dynasty.
Yes. So let's talk about it. Siguro just to give a general view on this. So there are 14 or so bills in Congress right now filed before the House of Representatives. And for the most part, it hindi pwede tumakbo ang hanggang 4th degree of consanguinity. Ibig sabihin, hanggang pinsan bawal.
Hanggang pinsan.
Tapos meron pa din isang part doon that disallows succession. In other words, if you are congressman of Bicol for 3 terms, once you graduate, none of your relatives until hanggang pinsan nyo po ay maaaring tumakbo dahil pinagbabawal po yung rule of succession. Would that be correct, sir?
Well, that's the proposal.
That's one, yeah.
But the minimum qualification enumerated in Article 6 and in Article 7. Sabihin na natin sa senador. Sa senador, you must be at least 35 years of age, natural-born citizen, able to read and write, and a registered voter of the Philippines. Specific in Article 7 also, the minimum qualification prescribed under 4 members of the House of Representatives, natural-born citizen, 25 years of age, able to read and write, and a registered voter, and a resident kung saan siya tumatakbong distrito. Right. Now, if you will add another qualification, then...
Which is what?
Basically, like for example, if you should not be a relative within the fourth civil degree of consanguinity in the incumbent official where you're running in that district. So it's practically altering the provisions of the Constitution, which only provides that minimum qualification, which is exclusive. So ang gusto ko lang sabihin dito, Pinky, if you want to do it right, then we need to seek the amendment of that particular provision.
Article
through,
6 and 7?
Yeah, constitutional amendment, not through ordinary legislation.
Ibig sabihin po, Chacha. Tama po.
Well, to cover those national elective position. Because if you will ask me, and this is my position, those statutory disqualification will only apply to local elective official. But in the national level, I think it will not apply on my position.
But why would that be your position if the 1987 Constitution actually disallows political dynasty? Let me read it. Article 2, Section 26 of the 1987 Constitution says, the state shall guarantee equal access to opportunities for public service and prohibit political dynasties as may defined by law. When the Constitution says prohibit political dynasties, bawal ang mga political dynasty as defined by law na gagawin niyong batas. So kayo po sa Kongreso ay gagawa ng batas, and that should not be contradictory to the qualifications set in Article 6 and 7 of the 1987 Constitution.
It's not contradictory. It's a declared state policy, but that declared state policy cannot override an existing implementing provisions under the Constitution. The Constitution, as I've mentioned earlier, under Article 6 and Article 7, meron na doon qualifications.
Yeah, but it doesn't say you are going to be disqualified from running. It's basically just gonna say that after 3 terms, but hindi ka na pwede. Kasi as defined by law,
yeah,
based on Article 2, Section 26 of the
tama
Constitution.
Po. When you speak of those term limits, that is a constitutional disqualification. And that is provided under our existing Constitution. But to, kumbaga, magdagdag ng kwalifikasyon sa pamamagitan ng isang batas that will alter the constitutional enumerations of those minimum qualifications would be unconstitutional amendment, and it will violate, the constitutional supremacy.
Okay. But aren't you already violating the Constitution by not passing an enabling law which prohibits political dynasties?
As I've said, it's a declaration of state policy that provides guidelines on how Congress should do it. But my take on that is we can do it on an approach that is not on a statutory level, but proposing directly amendment to the Constitution. If we want to cover,
ng not statutory para maintindihan po natin?
Well, statutory
not
is
statutory level.
Well, yun yung ipinapasa natin batas
yung
sa
bills,
Kongreso.
yung the usual bills. Okay.
But introducing amendment to the Constitution is a different one. Okay? It is either through Constituent Assembly or CONCON or People's Initiative. So, yun, Pinky, ang aking kumbaga, take on that, my position on that. Hindi natin susundin ang ating Constitution. Ang akin lang dito is, gawin natin yung tamang approach. If we want to cover those national elective officials or positions, then we should, propose amendment to Article 7 and Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution. In the local level, nagagawa natin yun through our statutory provisions or disqualifications, such as nagawa natin sa SK Reform Act, sa Bangsamoro Law, kasi nga hindi ho sila, yung kanilang qualifications are not specifically provided under the Constitution.
You know, I was reading a column by former Chief Justice Artemio Panganiban. Basically, he says that he submits that dynasties can be contained through three ways: constitutional clarity, targeted legislation, and three is strategic nudges. I'm just going to read the targeted legislation, just so we get this conversation a little bit deeper. Ang sinabi po niya sa targeted legislation, here you go. So it's the Senate Bill 1548, but again, as mentioned, there are about 14 others at the House of Representatives. Seeks to prohibit any persons related within the fourth degree of consanguinity or affinity to an incumbent national or local elective official from running for national office for local office with the same jurisdiction or under party-list system. It also prohibits immediate successors from being elected in the same office. If enacted, it would widen access to public office for qualified candidates outside dynastic networks. Many politicians publicly express opposition to dynasties, yet the passage of the bill remains elusive. Then he says, Section 26, Article 2 of the Constitution, mandating an anti-dynasty law remains one of the constitutional provisions that Congress has failed to implement. Like CONCON proposals, this bill may share the fate of many stalled and pending measures. I mean, I didn't, in his column, it never mentioned a statutory level or qualifications or disqualifications that may impede or render Article 6 and 7 of the qualifications for elected officials. It never said that. It was very simple to me. That's why this is very new to me. This is actually the first time that I've heard that kung kailangan natin ng anti-dynasty bill, kailangan tayong mag-cha-cha because this is not a simple bill, but it is an amendment of the Constitution. And then again, I lay down my premise on how can it be an amendment when it already said in the Constitution, you guys should have passed already a bill from 1987, from 1988 rather.
There's no quarrel to that, Pinky, if you will only cover local elective position.
What is local?
When governor down to the barangay level. But, you know, the qualifications mentioned in Article 6 and 7 of the Constitution, I'm referring to this, the President, the Vice President, the Senator, and the members of the House of Representatives. These are clear, categorical, and exclusive. Hindi ka pwede magdagdag dun eh. In fact, in one case decided by the Supreme Court, and this is supporting my thesis, is that if the mere imposition, it's the case of social justice society versus the Dangerous Drug Board, where the mere imposition of additional qualification for a candidate running for the Senate, requiring him to produce a negative result on illegal drugs as a precondition.
Drug test, right?
Yeah, as a precondition for a valid certificate of candidacy. It was struck down by the Supreme Court.
SC, yeah.
Because the Supreme Court said the qualification...
It's not stated in Article 6 and 7.
Yes. So it's not, you cannot alter.
Again, it doesn't, I do not question Article 6 and 7. It says, for senator, 35 years, able to read and write, what is a natural born
citizen,
Filipino, etc. But there is an umbrella part of the Constitution, like an overarching theme, that political dynasties are not allowed. It's just you guys having to, pass a bill that actually puts into place what a political dynasty is. I mean, in the past, it was always, tell me first what the definition is of a political dynasty. Now you have a definition. Family members, basically, just to make it simple, until the fourth degree of consanguinity, at least in some of the bills, is called a political dynasty. And then again, as mentioned a while ago, and I will say it again, this is the first time I heard that the Constitution needs to be changed because the Constitution already said that you must pass a bill, an enabling law on political dynasty. Well, okay, so that's your position. Do you share, do you have others that share that position? It's important, sir, because you're the vice chairman of the Committee on Constitutional Amendments.
Well, this is new to everyone in the House of Representatives. And when I shared my view on that, and they fully agree with me because of the Supreme Court decisions, as I mentioned earlier, that a mere imposition of additional qualification would literally alter the constitutional qualifications found in Article 6 and 7. So, ang sinasabi natin dito, Pinky, yes, we have a state, declared state national policy, but that is not self-executing. It does not override an effective and existing minimum qualification under the Constitution. There's a right approach. If you want to cover the national elective office, then my position, my thesis is, we should propose amendment or amending Article 6.
Through a charter change.
Through a
Ganun
charter
po yun.
change.
Yes.
Opo.
In other words, if you want to do this, if you guys want to do this on a national level, and I was talking to Congressman Garbin about this, ang national is president, vice president, senators, and congressmen, and party list representatives. Even if congressmen, not party list, are not elected nationally, hindi ho ba, they are still considered on the national level. Would that be correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying kailangan po talaga ng chacha.
Yun ang aking paniniwala.
Yun po yung
Dahil na nga
thesis.
sa desisyon ng Korte Suprema in the case of Social Justice Society versus Dangerous
Do you
Drugs.
think it's going to make it harder now? Because if the Constitution just basically said you need to pass an enabling law, and then now you're saying that we need charter change, it's obvious that having to pass an anti-dynasty bill will be much more of a challenge and much more difficult.
It's more of a challenge, more tedious, and a bit difficult to call for a charter change right now if we want to propose amendment to the qualification in order to, set in the anti-dynasty provision in our Constitution.
Okay, hold that thought, sir. We need to take a very short break. We'll continue our discussion with Congressman Alfredo Garbin when we return. Stay tuned. This is On Point. All right, welcome back. Still with us ako, Bicol Party List Representative Alfredo Garbin. So, because of this, you already talked to some of your fellow lawmakers, and they are in agreement with your theory.
Well, in a casual discussion, they also agree with me that an enabling law cannot just contradict or supplant express constitutional commands.
Ano po ibig sabihin nun?
Meaning, pag meron tayong isang probisyon sa saligang batas at ito lang ang nire-require at kumbaga, you supplant it or you alter it by, coming up with an enabling law, then that is unconstitutional
Basically,
amendment.
because it's contradicting what
It's
you were
contradicting.
talking about.
And you talk about supremacy of the Constitution, dapat yung ating enabling law must be in accordance with the fundamental law of the land, which
So
is
if
the
that is the
Constitution.
case, how would you define a political dynasty that you could pass an enabling law to prohibit political
So that is
dynasties?
on the part of substance. Wala pa tayo doon kung ano talaga yung kumbaga, kung ano talaga yung anti-dynasty definition. What we are talking right now is the approach, the procedure, and how to do it in order to have an enduring and long-lasting change when we push this mandate or state policy on anti-political dynasty.
Which basically you're saying is through chacha, through
Yeah.
charter change. And I'm just going to go there first. There is also a chacha push. You are, to be clear also, you are for chacha, for charter change for economy and territory only.
Yes, I filed a resolution of both houses, which covers proposed amendment to Article 1, which is the national territory. We have to change the definition to suit into the general accepted principle
Which
of
is?
international law, which is the United Nations on the Law of the Sea. Nanalo tayo sa on clause. Nanalo tayo sa arbitral tribunal na kung saan yung exclusive economic zone where we have sovereign rights ay atin. Pero hindi yun nakasaad sa ating definition sa national territory. Our national territory states the waters around, between, and connecting the Philippine archipelago, we have jurisdiction, but it does not speaks of the exclusive economic zone. So much better if we put in there exclusive economic zone and continental
But wasn't
shelf.
it already passed in the previous Congress? I know the author there was the former Senator Tolentino, the Philippine Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act and Maritime Zones Act. Hindi ho ba yun? Yun
Yeah,
yun?
but that refers to the existing law, but to the Constitution, where we have a 39-year-old definition of our national territory, hindi pa included.
Yeah.
So might as well include it.
Okay. But basically, it's the same one passed in the 19th Congress. You want to amend the Constitution to actually put it in the Constitution, in
Yes.
Article
And for
1.
the benefit of the future generation.
And that's why you were saying for economy and territory only.
Yeah.
But should it be economy, territory, and anti-dynasty?
Wala pa eh. Hindi nakasama yung kumbaga proposed amendment dun sa Article 6 and Article 7 on the anti-dynasty provision. So dito lang muna tayo nag-limit sa, because this was filed when the Congress opened last July, and hindi pa pinag-uusapan yung anti-political dynasty.
All right. So economy, what exactly do you want changed in
Article
amended
12,
rather?
Article 14 and 16 of the 1987 Constitution
Foreign
speak
ownership.
of national patrimony, sectors of education, advertising, media, on the national patrimony, yung ownership, syempre, and of course, we want to, open it to foreign direct investment by not just limiting their participation in the local economy. Ngayon kasi 40 lang 40, 60. But in some sectors of the economy, even 100%, like education, and then mass media. Wala na ng barrier ngayon, Pinky. Yung provision na yun, I consider it as obsolete already because you speak of mass media, pumunta ka sa malls, makita mo, in the newsstand, foreign publications are being sold, and in all the cable televisions, available yung lahat ng, so I mean, there's no barrier already, and that's why I keep on telling that the provisions of the Constitution, especially the restrictive economic provisions, should be amended in order to respond to the needs of time.
That's been discussed over and over again from way back, from even previous presidents and Congresses. How do you plan, what is the kind of cha-cha you were saying to be able to amend the Constitution? Are you looking at CON-AS? Are you looking at CON-CON?
Well, 2 weeks ago, we had this public consultation, and I think the majority of the members of the constitutional amendments would want to have a constitutional convention.
Oh, yeah. Constitutional Convention?
CON-CON.
Oh, not CON-AS.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are two issues. One is, the public trust on how to proceed with this one. The second is the existential question on how Congress will vote to call for constituent assembly or constitutional convention. So these are the things that talagang nahihirapan tayo on how to proceed with this one.
The President had 4 priorities, asked Congress to prioritize 4 measures. One is the Anti-Dynasty Bill. The other one is the Party
List Reform Act.
List Reform Act. You being a member of ACO Bicol, is something you support?
Yes, I support to revisit Republic Act 7941, the enabling law for the party list system, and make sure that those who are, qualified and competent to run in the party list system, yun lang dapat siguro makapasok. And it also calls on the agency concerned. One of our constitutional office, which is the COMELEC, who accredits all party list groups. Siguro, tingnan din natin on how they accredit and how they qualify those who will participate in party list elections.
Do you agree, though, Congressman, that it has actually become a venue for those who might not have a chance to win in their respective legislative districts, and somehow it's become, a political dynasty issue also with the party list groups?
Siguro yung first question, hindi naman. Mas mahirap nga minsan tumakbo sa party list. Akala mo madali lang pero napakahirap manalo because if you don't have a solid base, whether a sector or an identified group, talagang ang dami na nag-try, ang dami rin nag-fail. But on the second observation is, talaga po, minsan nagagamit din ng mga political family wherein, kumbaga, makita mo, merong party list representative, at the same time, may kamag-anak na district representative, meron pang kamag-anak sa Senado. So, yeah, it's a valid observation right now that Congress, it's like a family corporation.
Family business. Actually, let me read this. There was one compilation that said that 40 groups had political dynasty links. This is the party list groups. 40 party list groups had political dynasty links. 25 had big business ties, and 18 were connected with police military establishments. These were some of those that were actually, I think, flagged or questioned. So time to look into it, time to reform it. And you are, again, from Bicol, very controversial because of your resigned nominee, well, Congressman, rather, Zaldico. Has that affected the group? Do you know where he is? Are you still in touch with him? What is the relationship you have with the former Congressman Zaldico?
Well, to tell you honestly, Pinky, when he filed his resignation, he also cut any communications from us, from the group. In fact, he resigned in all aspects of the party list group. Wala na siya sa pangalan ng Ako Bicol Party List, hindi lang sa Kongreso, pati na rin sa board and in the Commission on Election Papers. And if he will ask me whether I have communications with him, wala na rin po. So talagang pinutol niya totally. Yung,
has he become a liability to your group, to your party list group?
Well, somehow it, put not a very good reputations to a party list, Ako Bicol. And talagang yun ang isa sa dinadala namin na kumbaga burden sa mga kakapwa namin Bicolano on how to explain that the nominee has a separate and distinct personality over the political party.
All right. Ako Bicol Party List Representative Alfredo Garbin, sir, pleasure to have you. Thank you for your time. Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. That's On Point. Join us again tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. here on VNC, the Billionario News Channel. I'm Pinky Webb. Thank you for watching.